time to talk about luxury cruising. From suites so sweet to ships elite. Come explore the world in style with me on Luxury Cruising, the podcast.
Hey, it's Krystal here. Before we get started, did you know that there is a way for you to directly support the podcast? Head over to my website, luxurycruising.net, and you can buy me a latte, a glass of champagne, or even a whole bottle of champagne if you want. Leave me a note, and I'll be sure to give you a shout out on the next episode. That's luxurycruising.net. You can also leave me a note or ask a question. Okay, let's get on with the show.
Welcome back to Luxury Cruising. I'm your host, Krystal Sodaitis, and thank you for joining me this week as I talk about a special sailing that I did. So we went on a 4-day preview sailing of Star of the Seas. Star of the Seas, if you haven't heard, is Royal Caribbean's newest Icon class ship. It is the largest cruise ship in the world right now, and I wanted to talk to you about my experience on this ship. I didn't have a suite, but I was able to create a luxurious experience for myself and for my family. So let's dig in. First, let's talk about how I even got on this sailing. It really wasn't anything other than just keeping my ears open, and I had been following the news about Star of the Seas. The ship initially had its inaugural cruise pushed back because they thought that the construction was going to be delayed. But then as the construction went on, they realized that the ship would be, in fact, done earlier. So they opened up a few preview sailings. These were what they call revenue generating sailing. So you had to pay for your ticket. This wasn't free for influencers or for media or travel agents. This was for paying customers who could come on and experience the ship even before the inaugural sailing. So it happened to work with my kids' school schedule. The initial or inaugural sailing happened after the start of school. I wouldn't usually pay the increased cost of going on an inaugural cruise, despite our recent episode on inaugural cruises, and I will link that in the show notes. So when this sailing opened up, I pretty much jumped on it. Just being able to go on Star of the Seas is a bit of a luxury. Now, it's not the most expensive ship out there, actually. I did a price comparison, and actually Wonder of the Seas, for a balcony stateroom, a 7-night Caribbean cruise with a balcony stateroom, Wonder of the Seas actually has the highest cost with over $2,000 per person. But Icon and Star are the next two most expensive. So compare a 1-week balcony on Star at about $1,700 per person to something like Oasis of the Seas, which is just $700 per person. Now, I did compare the same 7-week, tried to keep it to the first week of September, which tends to be a low season. It's hurricane season, kids are back in school, and your costs may change depending on the week you decide to cruise. But overall, Icon of the Seas and Star of the Seas are two of the most expensive ships to sail on in the Royal Caribbean fleet. So just going on Icon is a luxury. Now, what kind of room did I book? I said I didn't book a suite. And I really went back and forth, not for too long, but for a few minutes on should I get a Surfside family suite. Now, a Surfside family suite is a really nice room. It's configured so that when you first come in, there's a little alcove with bunk beds. And the bunk beds are kind of in an L shape. The kids have their own TV, their own space. There's a little curtain. I don't do room tours. If you want to go on YouTube, I'm sure you can find plenty of room tours about what a Surfside family suite looks like, but it's a very, very nice suite. It has a couch that then pulls out into a separate bed, and then obviously a king size bed that can also be split into two size beds. And I thought, this really works. This configuration works well for my family because I've got a very tall 16-year-old and a not so tall 11-year-old. And so the 11-year-old loves being in a room like this before with the bunk beds. She absolutely loves the bunk beds with her own little space and her own little curtain so she can create her own little alcove. And the 16-year-old has no problem sleeping on the pull-out couch. They're generally very comfortable, and then my husband and I have our own beds. But the issue with this room is that while there are two bathroom spaces, there's a toilet space and a shower space. There's really only one bathroom when you think of a full bathroom. And so for a family of four, that at times and on this ship would have been problematic. So instead, and for those of you that are not watching on YouTube, you should flip over there because I'm going to do a little bit of a show and tell. Instead, I opted for a connecting ocean view balcony room. Now, what you can see if you're watching here on YouTube is that these are two rooms that are side by side that are connected but outside of the actual open door. So there's a tiny little alcove in between the two rooms, and then there's a larger outside doors that close, and so that anyone in the stateroom, anyone's keys can open that door and have access to both rooms. These are standard ocean view balcony rooms, so I didn't do a comparison of the square footage to a Surfside family suite, but I would bet we have more square footage here. Everyone gets their own bed so that my 16-year-old doesn't have to sleep on a pull-out couch. And most importantly, there are two full bathrooms. Yes, it's two spaces, but there's also two showers so that there were times when we needed to have both those showers going at the same time. So this was really a very nice alternative for my family. I like that little alcove. I thought we might use that alcove as like storage, but really we didn't. It was just an open space, and it just added to the general space of the room. We didn't have suite access, so that was a little bit disappointing. But truth be told, my kids don't like Coastal Kitchen. We probably wouldn't have enjoyed that. We may have gotten access to the Grove, which is another specialty restaurant on Icon, and obviously the suite deck. The downside also, though, we would have been very close to Surfside, and the Surfside area of the ship is in the back of the ship, and it would be a long walk from a lot of things. So while there's a lot of advantage to the Surfside family suite, I opted to do the side-by-side connecting balcony staterooms. And I think it really worked out for us. So the other advantage to being on this preview sailing is that most of the staff are new. They're not new to Royal Caribbean, but they're new working as a team. And they're still getting the sort of bugs out. And so the ship is only at about 70% capacity. They don't sell out. There were a lot of open spaces because the ship was not at full capacity. Now, that also meant that there were glitches. There were times when the service was slow because the teams hadn't been working together for very long and they just didn't have their flow down. Did that impact our experience? Not really. It was all generally fine, but it was also very nice having the ship only at 70% capacity. When we were going on those water slides, because Star of the Seas has 6 water slides on its top deck, the lines were reasonable. Just like at an amusement park, I saw signs on those stairs of the slide saying, wait time from here 30 minutes, wait time from here 60 minutes. And we never had that. I think at most we waited maybe 15 minutes to get on a slide. And so that was fantastic. The other luxurious aspect of this cruise was the embarkation day brunch. Now, this is a tradition in Royal Caribbean to have a extensive seafood embarkation brunch during their inaugural year. I definitely, though, want to share with all of you some of the pictures from that brunch because this was just really extraordinary. I experienced it on Icon of the Seas because we were there for its inaugural sailing. So I knew that this was likely to happen and I was really looking forward to it. So I know I said seafood, cold seafood embarkation lunch, but here's the first picture that came up. Look at the depth of these pork chops. These chickens were absolutely beautiful. Look at that salmon there, all displayed out on embarkation day. And then these scallops, you can see I've got some scallops in the picture, and then next to it are these little lobster tails that have this amazing salsa on it. I could have eaten my weight in both of these two items. They were so good. And then you've got these giant, this is more hot food, these giant head-on shrimp and warm lobster tails that were also out there on the buffet. You can also see in the back corner some really, really nice looking steaks, that beautiful broccoli there on the grill. And then lastly, these are my absolute favorite. This is sushi that is presented inside of a partially hollowed out lime or lemon with a little bit of caviar on the top. I think I could probably have just eaten this for brunch. These are some of my favorite things to eat on a Royal Caribbean ship and not something that you will find on a regular sailing. So that extensive seafood embarkation brunch is only during an inaugural season. And if you can get on a ship during their inaugural season, seriously, just for that embarkation day lunch, it is worth the price of admission. And then another way that this was a really luxurious trip is that it was only 4 days, so that wasn't all that luxurious. We had 2 sea days. We went to Royal Caribbean's private island, Coco Cay, and we spent 1 day there. And then we had 2 sea days to enjoy the ship, to relax, to be able to really explore all of the things that Star of the Seas has to offer. And it really has some wonderful things to offer. I didn't show pictures of the thermal suite. It has a really extensive thermal suite with at least 6 chairs. The price for this cruise was not bad. The price for unlimited access to the thermal suite was, I think, under $150. Now, I am not a very big thermal suite user. I prefer most of the thermal suites on Royal don't have a view of the outside. And so I would much prefer if I'm going to lay down and read, I would much prefer to be either outside or at least have a view. So I didn't do that, but I thought that's a really not expensive way to add a little bit of pampering and luxury to your cruise experience. Well, they had 2 different wet saunas. So one was a regular and another one apparently was extra humid that is supposed to be even better for, releasing all of the toxins through your pores. So, and a beautiful giant chromotherapy rain shower. So thermal suite had a very, very good price for this cruise. On Coco Cay, we just hung out at the beach. I did rent 2 floating mattresses. I did that online. So the cost was probably 50% of what it would have been if I had done it at Coco Cay. Because this was the end of August, the water was the absolute perfect temperature. And so we mostly just hung out on those floating mattresses for most of the day. And it was just wonderful. It was absolutely the most relaxing and luxurious beach day that we could imagine. So all in all, even though I didn't get a suite on this Star of the Seas sailing, I still managed to create some luxury for myself. Now, if you have sailed Star of the Sea or planning to sail Star of the Sea or Icon of the Seas, and you want to come on the podcast to talk about your luxurious experience, I would love to have you. So please be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that when we do get that person on to talk about their star or sky class experience on an Icon class ship, you will be sure to catch it. Until then, I wish you safe and luxurious cruising.
Hey, before you go, if you're enjoying this content, I would so appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you'd like to be on the show, there's a link to a form in the show notes, or you can email me at luxurycruisingpodcast@gmail.com. That's luxurycruisingpodcast@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you soon.